Hello, Sid here, and welcome to the Drunken Ork. Now, not long ago, I built a Gorka Knight, which was basically me getting the Knight kit and the Gorkanaut kit, smashing them both together and see what come out the other side. And this is what came out the other side. Isn't he lovely? But as you can see, he's more Knight than not. Do you know what I mean? He's got the Gorkanaut head, and he's got the Gorkanaut claw, but other than that, he's mostly all Knight. So I had a lot of Gorkanaut left over. And since I don't have a Morkanaut, I thought, well, I'm going to build a Morkanaut. And this is what that video is about, if you are wondering. So what we're going to do is, we're going to crack on, have a look at the build, a bit of the painting, and I'm going to come back to it at the end. I've done something a little bit different with this as well, a little bit special, which I hadn't done before. Which I don't really go into in the video. But anyway, I'll go through that at the end. It's electrifying. Yeah? Yeah, you'll get it later. You'll get it later. There's not much to get, really. But let's crack on with the build. Here we have the Morkanaut body. And you can see it's a Morkanaut because it comes with a big KFF. There's no head, so I'm using this space as a stage for a little rock band. And here's the drum kit, so that'll go right inside there and have the rest of the little grot rockers scattered about. But let's jump in the gun a little bit. I'm using the standard Morkanaut legs. I haven't put the toe claws on because I wanted to save those for something else. For the shooty arm, I actually used the custom mega cannon from the Grot mech gun. Attached that instead, just for a little bit of variance, and I did glue the 4 big shooters to this arm as well, so all the shooty is on one arm. And that will go in there. For the choppy arm, I was going to use this, an arm off one of the knights. And it looks quite cool actually, but it's a little bit, I don't know, refined is maybe the word I'm looking for. It does look a little bit knightly, not Morkanautly. So I had this piece knocking around for quite a while. It's a resin chopper arm off a Mega Dread from Geargut's mech shop, and I never quite got the Mega Dread built due to a lot of printing errors that I had. So I'm thinking, yeah, this is much better, much more orky, isn't it? And that'll fit there. That's not too bad at all. It is quite plain, but I figure I'll just stick some extra details on it. And as I've got the big shooters, I need to add the rockets up on top here. I've decided to go with this rocket pod from the Knight kit, and I've put a bit of plastic rod there just to lift it up a bit so it doesn't squash the Ork's nut who sits in the turret. Then I found this, which is the big chopper from the Stomper kit. Now I had a spare one, and compared to the one I was going to use, it's a little bit bigger, but that's not too much of a problem, but it has got a lot more lovely detail on, so this is the one I'm going with. However, this arm, the Stomper arm, this is it without all the cables and pistons on, it's just a little bit too long and weedy, if I'm being honest. That just won't do at all. So I'm going to use the Geargut's upper arm to mount the Stomper chopper on, like that. Now that pipe coming from the barrel is in the way, and I like that pipe. It's got a little tap on it and everything. So I've decided to surgically remove it to mount the upper arm in its place, and then I can use that pipe and stick it back on somewhere else. I'm just marking off a straight line on the elbow joint of the upper arm, just so I know where to cut. And that'll give me a nice flat section. I can then attach it to the chopper. So I saw that bit off, and because it's resin, I am wearing the suitable protection so I don't breathe all that horrible dust in. Once I've finished sewing, I'll wet some kitchen towel and use that to wipe up the dust. There you go, that'll go on there. So with the upper arm attached to the chopper, I take a piece of hexagonal plastic rod, and with my Omni cutter, or whatever it's called, I cut off some discs, and this is basically nuts on the elbow joint. Need to sand these flat, and once that's done I can glue them in place. Then I just need to cut a disc off a round bit of plastic rod and then that'll be the bit of bolt that sticks out. And then adding that pipe with the tap back onto the barrel, and in the end I decided to leave it exactly where it was in the first place, but further to the outside. Taking this elbow joint from a piece of plastic plumbing, I find a suitable piece on the end that I want to cut off and use as a speaker. I figure since this Morkanaut's going to have a band on it, it needs to have a couple of big speakers. So cutting this off, before tidying up with a knife and then a sanding stick, I also find another suitable piece and decide to mount these two speakers onto the shoulder pads. The first one is going to be mounted on just with a bit of plastic rod. It's quite a thick piece, and I cut the bottom of it at an angle to get a nice bit of surface area to glue to the shoulder pad. I do need to trim away some of the details on the shoulder pad to get a good join, and I use a medium viscosity super glue to stick it on. I use quite a bit of it as well, so there's lots that squirts out around the edges. And then with that, I add a little bit of bicarbonate of soda, which activates the super glue, causes it to set with a pitted rusty type texture, and of course it gives a bigger surface area, so it's a much stronger bond. Once I've dusted off the excess bicarb, because it does tend to get everywhere, I can remove the speaker itself to make it easier to work on. The other speaker is going to be mounted on the left hand shoulder pad with some of this plastic rod that's shaped like girders. It's quite expensive for this, so I don't use it very often, or maybe I do. I cut a couple of pieces so that when overlapping the zigzags turn into more of a diamond pattern, and glue those to the shoulder pad in much the same way with the bicarbonate of soda method. Now it's time to crack on with the speakers. So these two bits of plumbing pipe I've got for the speakers, and this one just happens to perfectly fit a 32mm base, and this one just happens to fit a 40mm base, so that was quite fortuitous. I'll have to do something with that. So I start by drilling a lot of holes in the bases. This just allows us to get in there with a pair of snips and a knife, carve out a bigger hole, and then with a sanding cylinder I can get in there and open it right up. File off some of the spurs, and there you go. I then cut out a couple of circles of 1/2mm plastic card with a corrugated texture, and add those into the base rims to basically be the front of the speakers, and then glue them to the PVC piping. Then I've got to decorate them up a bit, so with the T-section of plastic rod I cut little girder spikes, such as the type you'd find on the stomper belly, and decorate those around the edges of one of the speakers. I also get a couple of whiskey corks, trim them down and use those to give them a little bit more depth, a little bit more meat to the back of the speakers, just because I think that would look better. Then I just grab some greebly bits and start sticking them on. I don't know what half these things are, but the speakers just have to have some sort of gubbins. There's some cogs from medical inhalers, there's some offcuts of plastic card and plastic tubing, faceplate off a death dread, a few armour plates and bits of bent plastic card, and various odds and ends. Add a few nuts and bolts as well, and then start putting some 2mm wire in. Where I put the 2mm wire in, I often cut a little ring of plastic tube as well, which just nips round it, and you can just use that as a mounting point for where the wire goes into the body of the model. More nuts and bolts around the front, and then I can stick the speakers into place. Once I've got them in place, I decide I want to add a long wire connecting the two speakers up nice and high, right above the model. And to give it an extra point to hang from, I'm making a little support here just from a plastic ring, which I'm going to mount onto a cocktail stick. Like that. This is fixed to the top of the Morkanaut, and then the wire, which is just some 2mm modelling wire, runs from the left hand speaker up through a couple of bits of greeblies which have holes in the middle, so I thought why not stick the wire through them, through the little support I've just made, sagging down, and then onto the right hand speaker where it fits into the back. because again there was a little hole already there. And I've got my speakers done. Now I mentioned earlier I didn't put the toe claws on the legs, so I get some more of that T-bar plastic rod. I cut them into girder points and fix it to the front of the feet so it's got a couple of toe cap spikes for booting. Although how a Gorkanaut boots I'll never know. Next up I'm grabbing one of these banners from the Knights kits and I'm just roughing it up a bit, putting a few tears and rips in it, some missing tassels, just so I can make this look a little bit more orky, and then mount it under the shooty arm. It's got these little eagles on it which I'm not keen on, so I snip those off and replace them with a couple of human skulls, and I glue it into place. Once that's done, I take one of the knight faces or masks or heads or whatever it is, and I've flattened down the forehead piece of it, and I'm going to stick this over the knee on one of the legs. I've trimmed away some of the inside of the mask as well, just so it's got more contact with the knee and sits a little bit more flush. Otherwise, because it's curved, it was quite far away. So by shaving away some of those edges, you can get it a bit closer. Then, to that section of forehead that I flattened down, I'm adding a spike. That's from the Stomper kit. And on the other knee, I've shaved a bit flat as well, and I'm just going to stick a spike directly onto that too. You know, for when the Morkanaut does its characteristic flying knee thrusts. Now I'm just sticking a few of that bits and bobs on the body itself, a little viewport here on the belly, and some spikes around the bottom. These are the girder spikes out of the Stomper kit. Couple of glyph plates for the centre of the speakers, and a few more smaller plates just around the front of the stage there. Adding some little bits of cabling, just randomly really. Nothing looks more orky than having loads of cables hanging down and nobody knows what they're there for. That's peak orky know what. Then I'm back to my old utility cutter, and I'm going to cut a small square or rectangle of 1/2mm plastic card. Now I'm doing this because I want a banner at the back of the stage. I've left it with a little bit sticking out the side. This is so I can hold it without burning my fingers. And if you're wondering why would I burn my fingers, it's because I'm going to warm it up with fire. Just by heating it, you can then press folds into it. I generally use the handle of a brush because it means the folds don't go too crisp, they're quite rounded. And for heating it, I generally find a candle, like a tea light, works better than an actual lighter because you don't have to hold it. We'll go a little fold across the top, and then I'll stick a bit of plastic rod on. It's like a curtain rail if you like. Now I'll get a slightly larger plastic rod, cut a couple of rings off it, and then they'll clip over the top and look like, well, if I'm keeping with a curtain vibe, curtain rings. I'm sure there's probably a specific name for them with flags, flag couplings or something like that. I don't know, but you get the idea. I'll also chop some rips and tears into it and put a few bolt holes in too.
We don't make mistakes, we have happy accidents.
So with the model built, I headed up with a prime. I primed it all black with high coat, matte black primer, and then I hit the main body up with some Macragge blue from Games Workshop, finally using the rattle can that I bought 4 or 5 years ago. I also hit up some of the bits which are primarily blue as well. And there's all the little bits which are going to go on it, which are still in black. So I've got the blue base on there. I want to do some airbrushing. So I'll get my trusty airbrush unit out, which is an old cardboard box, just to try and catch some of the overspray, so I don't just sit there spraying me monitor and keyboard. And I'm going to use some Macragge blue-ish airbrush paint. It's not actually Macragge blue, it's from Vallejo. And I'm just going to keep adding some white tone to it just to lift it up for those highlights. I've got a little card here which I'm going to use to block off on some of the edges, so when I'm spraying them I don't spray the highlight past where I want to. I do use that on some edges, and not others. Once I've hit everything up with this blue, like I say, I add a little bit of white to it and then do some very light highlights on the uppermost parts of the model. With all the bits airbrushed, it's time to start blocking in the other main colours, other than blue that is, and that's mostly the metallics. So all the weapons and the cogs and the gears. And because it's Death Skulls, I need to do the whites as well. Primarily the big old glyph on his belly. All the white sections on this model were actually painted with a very, very light grey. I think it was wolf grey by Army Painter. Then given a wash of Nuln Oil, standard new Nuln Oil, the one that's, you know, pretty weak tea, but it's ideal for this. And then once I'd done that, I was able to highlight them up again with the wolf grey and then put some uppermost highlights in actual white. And I think it looked pretty good. I'm also going to paint on some damage. Very simply, I generally use Rhinox hide for this. Just paint on some wear along the edges or some jagged shapes. Once you've done all that, go back and fill those shapes in with a gunmetal or a tin bits or whatever sort of metallic you want to be underneath, and just leave an outline of the Rhinox hide around it. If you prefer, you can paint the metallic bits on first and then outline them in Rhinox hide, but I find it's much more accurate and you get a nice sharper finish if you do the Rhinox first. There's the Morkanaut pretty much finished. Not the crew of course, but some weathering, the lenses are done, all the cabling's done. Yeah, happy with that. I've even done the little banner, although I did just use some transfers on this one. There's a little banner inside, Morkwind, if you know you know. It's not quite a silver machine, but... and the band's going to be sitting up there. Speaking of the band, we've got the drummer, so you can see I've already started the skin on him. The bassist, in a pretty snazzy little onesie. And the lead guitarist, shown here without his guitar. Although he does have his guitar there, and if I hold these like this, there you go, you get an idea of what he looks like. There's also the Squig. Well, I think he's meant to be the lead singer, since he's normally sitting on top of the speakers, shouting into a microphone. Can Squigs shout? Screaming? Barking into a microphone? Roaring? I don't know. He has some extra bits and bobs, including the drum kit, of course, and some drinks bottles and a little shooter, just to scatter about on the stage. The band itself I got from Etsy. I don't know who actually made them though, which is a problem sometimes when you get things from Etsy. It's not always blatantly obvious, but if you do know, if you recognise them and you know the sculptor, then please do let us know in the comments. So when I crack on, we paint these up, basically just using the slap chop method, which I'm quite happy to do on crew for vehicles, as it's quite effective and saves a lot of time. Then when they're finished, we just need adding. As you can see here already, I've put the Squig and the speaker stack on the top. And then if you look just to the left, you'll see in the little turret there is actually the Ork pilot who's in there as well. Very much not really important. I've also put the drummer in, as you can see, except you can't see because it's pitch black. Unless I flick the switch, and there he is. Illuminated. And of course, I can switch it off as well. Now I've got the bassist painted up in Death Skull blue. He's getting popped on the stage. And a little tool utility chest type thing, which I'm going to glue on the other side. I didn't want to put too many people on the stage bit itself because it would get quite cluttered quite quickly. I do have this little shooter, this little grot sized pistol. I'm going to stick that on top of the tool chest. And there's the lead guitarist in a snazzy yellow coat. And because, like I say, the stage would get a bit crowded, I decided to put him right up at the top by the Squig. After that, it was just a case of scattering a few of those bottles around as refreshments. And then gluing the whole thing to its base. Tufts and matte varnish to be added later. Do you see the electrifying pun now? Electric, you see, because there's a battery in it. Brilliant. Yeah, I didn't really go into much of that in the build. I think I showed it, but I didn't show you how I did it. And the reason behind that was because I've never used batteries before, and as far as I knew, I was going to make right pig's ear of it. And also, I'm sure there's much better videos out there showing you how to actually do it. But I just wanted it to be an inspiration. I inspire. I hope to inspire, if not show you exactly how to do it. But let's switch to the top-down cam and have a proper look at the model. So there we go, finished model, and I'm really pleased how it came out. Especially the blue. I love the blue gradients. I have never airbrushed a colour on a model this size before. I've done it on little sort of Space Marines and what have you, but with this you can really actually pick out the highlights and what have you. And yeah, I'm really pleased how it came out. I used some transfers on the banner instead of doing freehand, but you know, sewers, you can't. And yeah, I do like the band. I like them even better when they're in focus. And the way the batteries work, I mean, the reason I didn't really go into the batteries is because I don't really know what I'm doing with them. I had to look up a lot, and they were talking about resistors and capacitors and all this sort of stuff. But the LEDs I've got weren't going to be burnt out by this little D battery. And if anything, they were going to be slightly underpowered and not quite bright enough. But certainly bright enough for this, so that doesn't bother us. I'll definitely do some more, and maybe I'll go into more detail on the video when I do that to show you, but at the moment I feel there's better videos out there to explain it. And the doors hold together with the magnets. The drummer you can't really see without the switch on, so and you can see him. You can't see the Morkwind banner, but you know, that's just one of those things. It's one of these things that I was going to put the Goth Rocker on here, because I thought, oh, he'd be quite cool, especially standing up the top there. But when I got the Goth Rocker, I haven't painted him yet obviously, and I put him up there, he's massive. I mean, he's not massive as you can see, but he's just so much bigger on there than the Grots are, and I think the Grots give it more scale than having a Yark and Great Ork on top. It would make it look a bit smaller. So I'm quite pleased just with the size that the Grots seem to lend it. You know, do you know what I mean? The smaller Grots make the whole thing look a bit bigger. I think that Stomper Chopper on there looks awesome as well. Although thankful for this arm piece, because the original Stomper arm is pathetically weedy. And the speakers aren't bad either. So yeah, all in all, so it saved me battery. All in all, very pleased. I don't think he misses the head, if I'm being honest. Yeah. What's next? So there we go. One Morkanaut, one Gorkanaut. Pretty happy with them. Very happy with them, truth be told. They're the first ones I've built. And I hope you enjoyed watching the builds as well. I hope they inspired you. I really do. It is my first video, this one, that I've put out in Orktober, which is about week 2 if you ask me. But I've been very busy with work and what have you. And I'm determined. Now I'm very determined. I should put my Ork teeth in, shouldn't I? To show you how determined I am. I'm very determined, me. Fill a slaver. I am very determined to get more videos out by the end of the month. So, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And give the bell a little tickle. Tickle my bell. Just that way you won't miss out on any of the other Orky content that comes up in Orktober. another video, maybe 2, if I'm being realistic. And if you like, leave a comment. I'll always respond to my comments. Until I blow up huge, of course. So I'll always respond to the comments. I hope you did enjoy it. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, take care.